welcome to Sunday. Today we are going to be making a creme brulee. It is really simple. You don't need that very many ingredients. We're going to start with what you need for this recipe, and I'll just point things out to you as we go along, and then we'll start with the process. It's going to take a lot of whisking, a lot of manual labor, and especially when it comes to the eggs. So let's get started. Here we start off with a normal whisk that you're going to need. I wouldn't advise using an electric beater because it's just going to throw things out of whack a little bit. So a whisk, manual labor. You're going to need 100 grams of either castor sugar or normal sugar. I prefer to go with castor sugar because it's a much finer sugar, and normal granulated sugar that you put in your tea or your coffee does take a lot of hard work. Okay. In the bowl I've already separated 6 egg yolks, and if you look in there you'll see one of them is broken and there's a little bit of brown stuff floating around in there. The eggs are not off, and it's just a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Alright, then I have a half a litre or 500 milliliters of cream. You can use whipping cream. Unfortunately, trying to find whipping cream in Cape Town is like looking for chicken's teeth. So we've gone the normal cream route, and that works just as well. Alright, then you're going to need ramekins. For this recipe, you have 1 egg yolk per ramekin. So this serves 6. Alternatively, if you really like creme brulee and you'll want 2 big portions, then what you can do is you can use a dessert bowl and you can pour the entire mixture into 2 dessert bowls for 2 people, or alternatively just 1 massive one. Okay, my camera lady here is licking her chops at the thought of having 1 or 6 portions in 1 bowl. Alright, another thing that you desperately need is a whiskey. You cannot prepare creme brulee without having something to drink. My wife has got a glass of wine and I've got a whiskey to go. So cheers, enjoy, let's go. To start off with, what we're going to do is to help us save a little bit of time. I've preheated the oven to 150 degrees Celsius, and I've actually gone a little bit over because when I open the door you're going to lose heat. So I've heated it over it to 190, then thereabouts. We're going to start off with the cream, and while that's coming up to a boil, we're going to work on beating the castor sugar into the eggs. And then once the cream has come to just a little bit of a boil, then we'll combine the two and then start putting them into the ramekin. So what we're doing is we are starting off with the cream going into the pot. We are putting the plate on a medium heat because we don't want it to get hot aggressively. We don't want it to boil. So what we are looking for is we are just looking for the bubbles just around the edges of the cream. Then you know it's ready, because that's going to get whisked into the egg yolks and you don't want the eggs to scramble. Before we get going on the manual labor side of it, we first need to take a little sip. Fantastic. Alright, so what we're going to do here is we're going to be putting the castor sugar into the eggs and into the vanilla extract. I mean, we're beating it, doing it quite smoothly. We're not going to do all of the sugar in one go because that's going to make it a thick paste. We're going to do it gradually in stages. We'll do it in 3 stages. There's going to be a lot of whisking involved, so you're not going to be looking at my face, you're going to be looking down at the egg yolk. Now, we are going to be speeding this up, and that is just to make it not so boring watching me doing the whisking. Alright, so here we have 100 grams of castor sugar, and we're going to be putting about half of that into the eggs, and then it's just a mix through. Just getting everything combined. It is lots of fun in the beginning, but as you start adding in the sugar, it starts getting thicker and thicker and thicker, and then it's a lot more work. So you want to make sure that all of the sugar is in with the eggs. You don't want to leave sugar around the edges, because when you eventually put the milk in, and even though it's sugar and it will dissolve, you don't want clumps of sugar in your final product. So you want to make sure that it is completely dissolved and completely worked in, and there's no sugar left on the edges of your bowl. Okay, so the rest of that can go in. If you look here, you'll see quite a bit of sugar there. We're going to be working at that at the same time as the cream is busy heating up, and you might notice that the mixture is getting thicker and thicker. So it looks like you're about ready to make an omelette. You might be thinking to yourself, what has he done with the egg whites? Well, that you're not going to throw away. When you separate the eggs, keep the egg whites in a separate bowl, because all you need for this is the yolks. The egg whites you can use for an egg white omelette if you're trying to go the healthy option, or alternatively, if you enjoy baking, you can use the egg whites for a meringue. One of the tricks that I learned doing this a number of times is twofold. One, you can either hold the bowl up while you're busy whisking, or another trick is if you take a normal tea towel and you wrap the tea towel around it quite tightly, tilt the bowl up, wrap the tea towel underneath so it forms an angle. That way you can keep one hand free or relatively free while the other hand does the whisking, and the mixture will always run down to the lowest point because it's a liquid. The cream is warming up quite nicely. As I said earlier, we don't want it to boil at all, because when it boils it's going to separate. We don't want the cream to do that. We just want those bubbles forming around the edges. So we're going to go down to the pot. Now you should be able to see the steam coming off it against the black of the pot. And you can just see the steam coming off around about here where my finger is roughly. Okay, it's a little bit difficult, but there's a skin just starting to form on, and we're getting bubbles just along the edges of the pot. So we're going to take that off now, and we're going to slowly start working that into the egg yolks. To start the worst part of the manual labor, and with all manual labor you need to start getting some Dutch courage in first. And what we're going to do is pretty much the same as we did with the castor sugar. Ooh, that was lovely. We're not going to put it in all at once. What we are going to do is do it slowly, little by little, so that once the eggs go in, the cream is not too hot to cause the eggs to scramble while it's in the bowl. So little bits at a time. What I am going to do quickly is going to boil the kettle, so that when we pour the mixture into the ramekins, that the water is hot, and then from there it'll go straight into the oven. I've put the hot pot on the board. I don't want to put it directly onto the countertop, so we are going to put in little bits at a time, mixing as we go. Like I said earlier, you don't want the mixture to scramble, because that will be the death of your creme brulees. As you can see, I've wrapped the tea towel, I've left the tea towel wrapped around the bowl, and that'll keep it stable so that I can mix with one hand and pour with the other. One of the things that you can do is, before you pour the mixture into the ramekins, is to pour it into a jug, and that makes it easier to pour while you are trying to get everything in the mix without messing. So I put everything into a jug, and we're going to start pouring into ramekins, trying to get it as even as we possibly can. Okay. Right. If you look at the ramekin, you'll see that there's a ridge just here where my finger is pointing. What you want to do is you want to put some hot water into your oven tray, so that to that level, so that while the creme brulees are in the oven, there is moisture in there as well, because you don't want, the last thing you want to do is for it to dry out. You're not putting the water level up to the level of your custard mixture. What you are doing is just keeping moisture in there, because it's going to be in for about half an hour. So you want to make sure that you have sufficient moisture in the pan. So right now it's going to go into the oven, and it's going to be in there at 150 degrees, sorry, for 30 minutes. 30 minutes has gone by, and we are going to be taking the creme brulees out of the oven. The ramekins will have been sitting in the hot water all this time, obviously, and the effect that we're looking for is a little bit of a jelly effect when you shake the ramekin itself. So let's take them out of the oven and see what we've got. Alright, so the effect that you want is when you move the bowl that they look a little bit, or they move a little bit like jelly. And you know you've gotten it right. Yes, there's a little bit of a crust, but what we're going to be doing now is taking them out of the water so they don't continue to cook, and we're going to let them cool down a little bit. We need to leave them out for about an hour and a half, and then they're going to go into the fridge for at least 2 hours before we can put the castor sugar on top and the crust on with the blowtorch. For this section of the creme brulee process, we've taken it out of the fridge now. It's been in the fridge for just a little over 2.5 hours, so it should have set nicely. So what we're going to do is we're going to be sprinkling some castor sugar over the top to get the coating nice and even, and then we are going to set it on fire with a kitchen torch. So what you need for this is you need a kitchen torch first and foremost. They're not very expensive. I think I paid maybe $2.80 for it, then thereabouts. You're going to need some castor sugar, and you're going to need a teaspoon. So what we're going to do is we are going to take a teaspoon, just a nice level teaspoon of castor sugar per creme brulee. It's going to pop it into the bowls, and then that's done. And then you are going to spread it around so that it's sort of nice and even, because you want to get the crust nice and even. You don't want it sort of just gathering all in one place. This is where most guys will flourish, because this is where we get to set things on fire and we get to legally burn things in the kitchen. Alright, you see there's the blue flame in there. Never ever let that blue flame touch the sugar, because then we'll get the butane flavor into your creme brulee. So this is just going to be putting the crust on. Once this is done, you're going to let it go for about 2 minutes to settle down and harden up, and then you should have a nice solid crust to it. Alright, so moment of truth has come to see if we've gotten everything right. So what we're going to do first and foremost, we're going to try and get you really, really close so that you can actually hear the sound of the spoon tapping on the creme brulee. And then what I'll do is I'll stick the spoon in, break the crust open, and you can get to see what the texture of it is like. Because what you're looking for is a nice smooth texture. You don't want any lumps and bumps, because that is what would have happened had the cream boiled too much. Alright, so let's go and have a look and see what it's like. So if you listen carefully, it's got a nice crust on it, and now we dip in. Okay, so let's turn this around so that you can see. It's got a nice smooth texture to it. It looks like solid custard. And now for the taste. Here we go. Cheers, everybody. Oh yes, please. One of my best ones yet, and you can still feel the crunch in the mouth. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put all the ingredients in the description box down below, so that you know exactly what to look for in your local shops if you want to try and make this. Feel free to subscribe to my channel, and click the notification bell right next door to the subscribe button. That way you'll get notified when I upload new videos.